I'm very honored today to introduce Mimi Morgan. Mimi has an incredible story of resilience and a unique healing journey that many of us will find inspiring. After being diagnosed with Parkinson's, rheumatoid arthritis, and other serious neurological autoimmune conditions, Mimi faced rapid health decline. After conventional medical approaches failed to improve her condition, Mimi adopted some radical metabolic therapies that helped her transform her health and helped her heal. She's an incredible role model, and I'm very grateful for her taking the time to be with us today. Mimi, I really appreciate you coming on for our listeners. Thank you. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you, Eddie. I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
yeah, no, thank you. Um, I guess, we'll first start with there are a few different diagnoses in here, and it's incredible how you've overcome all of them. But you were diagnosed with Parkinson's. When was that?
So that was I was about 60 years of age, somewhere around there. It was 2 years after actually 2 years to the month after my rheumatoid arthritis diagnosis. And about 6 months prior to the diagnosis, I noticed symptoms shortly, just some odd things that were happening to me. I couldn't swing my arm quite well. I was dragging my leg.
Yeah.
Um, Little cognitive issues that were making things difficult to me. There was just something off. Then my children noticed what's called masking. Masking's a typical sign of any kind of Parkinson or Parkinsonism, where you think you're smiling, but you're not. You're not getting the messages. So you literally, your face looks like a mask. It's blank, and it started to show up in some holiday pictures. Like, Mom, you need to smile, and it's like, well, I am smiling. They actually, which I did, not to jump ahead, I did for 6 weeks, was voice therapy, and part of that is over exaggerating your facial expressions,
Yeah.
because we just don't get those signals. So that was a clear sign. The masking wasn't huge. I think it was never graded above like a grade 2. There's a scale, but it was enough to signal something was off.
Mm.
And within a year, I had gone to 3 of the top Parkinson's Foundation treatment centers in the U.S. for diagnosis, and it was all the same. Everything was the same.
Yeah. 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 Wow. So when you first got that diagnosis of Parkinson's, what were your initial feelings?
Um, I had a lot of things that were going on, a lot of things that were affecting me. I was falling was another symptom. There's always I think it's twofold. There's a sense of relief, there's a name for it.
Yeah.
And then for me, it felt like a death sentence.
Yeah.
And I didn't know a lot about the illness. And the truth is most people die with Parkinson's, not from Parkinson's. But it's not a particularly pleasant journey that I knew. And that on top of the other, and my rapid decline. Probably within a year of my initial diagnosis, I was deemed a multiple system atrophy suspect.
Wow.
That is one of the Parkinson's plus more advanced illnesses. It looks like Parkinson's for the first 5 years, and then it splits off where you have a rapid decline and death usually within a couple of years. It affects your autonomic system.
Wow.
It's not as fast. There's 2 other ones. Lewy body was the one I was most afraid of. That's what Robin Williams had. Horrible hallucinations and terrors.
Yes.
Parkinson's, with it will come some dementia, some hallucinations. They're typically more friendly. And that's a slower course. Multiple system atrophy literally affects multiple systems in your body. Autonomic is one. And I had some atypical early symptoms that usually don't appear in Parkinson's till about 8 years.
Yeah.
So I was a suspect for that for 5 years. And then 5 years, there was no advance of that. And they said, okay, well, we can really put this to rest.
Yeah.
And that's just I mean, that's an underlying pressure, an underlying fear, and all of that. None of that helps. And then the realization that, Parkinson's interesting because it's you slowly lose yourself. It's a slow chipping away of everything you know, all parts of you, and the wide range of symptoms that I had. It was, I was pretty hopeless. It felt pretty tough to handle.
Yeah. Yeah. I can only imagine. Um, you had talked about you'd had a rheumatoid arthritis diagnosis beforehand. What else in your background leading up to that diagnosis do you believe may have contributed to it, or what did that look like the years leading up to that?
Well, I had early childhood asthma, which was pretty severe. Daily medication since 2 years of age. I was pretty healthy. After I grew out of it in the mid-teens, was an accomplished equestrian. That became a lot more active and was pretty healthy. I ate well. I grew up in a house of nose to tail, but unlike most young women, and this was for me in my 20s, the whole low fat craze came, and I started eliminating fat.
Mm,
Started to become more vegetarian, afraid of beef, and more plants, more grains, everything that they were throwing on top of us.
yeah.
Eventually became vegan, was vegan for about 6 years, did a year of strict macrobiotic um, as well. And, managed, I think, because, I have think what I have going for me is I'm pretty strong, and I was healthy, and I had a good foundation. I was able to weather a lot, and also, when we're young, we can get away with a lot more. It didn't catch up until I started. I was a stay-at-home mom. Still, I started to overwork. Menopause started to hit,
Yeah.
and I had a fall. For me, it was a bad fall, resulted in 2 surgeries, but it was just a fracturing my wrist, but it triggered what's called Dupuytren's disease.
Yeah.
And that's, I had to have radiation for that. Normally, you get 1 or 2 nodules in your hand. It's fibrous collagen nodules grow on the tendons in your hand. It's pretty rare, mostly happens to men. It's very slow, it takes years. Within 4 months, I had all 28 nodules since pulling my thumb out of a joint. Um, and that for me was the catalyst in the downfall of my body just absolutely going haywire. It was during treatment for that a doctor noticed something was wrong, and that's when I was sent to a rheumatologist.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the medication for RA is really rough on your body. It requires usually prednisone. I was on that for a few years. Prednisone's a miracle drug. It certainly saved me at points in my life, but for a long term, it's brutal. Then Plaquenil, which was the easiest, methotrexate, and then the biologics. I
Wow.
was allergic to one of the biologics called Humira.
Wow.
Still can't take it. And I think that triggered the neurological. Um, and I'll never know whether I had true Parkinson's and was able to reverse it in time, or Parkinsonism. And But that's where I started I'd walk down the street, a street that I walk down every day for work. And all of a sudden, as I cross the street, I literally think I'm in another town. I have no idea where I am. I couldn't write letters all of a sudden. I was hallucinating, and a number of other things. The medicine wasn't working for the RA. I was taken off and put on another one, but in the process of being taken off of the biologics, which are a weekly injection and pretty harsh on your system, where we noticed that the hallucinations and those sort of things were going away. But I believe without it had caused an enormous amount of damage
Wow.
and affected. So but other than that, I grew up in the country. I grew up playing outside, getting fresh air, all the good things.
Yeah.
Did well water. Well water is something that may link to Parkinson's for sure.
Yeah.
I have some distant relatives that had it. Um, I don't think that they have any clear-cut answers,
Yeah.
but you will never convince me. I mean, I was fat starved, and you will never convince me that that wasn't a huge, if not the biggest contributor.
Yeah. Yeah.
Was I had basically eliminated almost all fat for
Yeah.
decades.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not uncommon, and I've heard it and seen it. And yeah, the low fat recommendations are definitely something that haven't really played out too well, especially with women having to go through menopause. There's no wonder that some of these neurological issues, more than two-thirds of the Alzheimer's cases are women. And typically
I believe it.
yep, yep. And typically those cognitive impairments that become decline start right around the area of perimenopause, menopause, postmenopause. So yeah, fat is so huge, and we'll get into that. But man, then you have a stroke too, is that correct?
Yeah. So at this point with Parkinson's, I had a managerial position when I had for 11 years. I knew it like the back of my hand. I majored in biology, minored in math, and now I can't do two-digit subtraction and division. Now I can't remember things that I'm doing at work, and now I can't put meals together. Accomplished cook. I don't even need recipes, and now I can barely put a meal together with the recipe. I'm having trouble carrying out day-to-day activities, and so I had to quit work. I was about 64 at the time, and that was tough. Not that physically I was pretty tired and drained, and not that I wanted it to. I mean, I enjoyed what I did, but what was earth shattering was just watching me lose more and more of myself every month. But I couldn't function. And it got to the point where making a simple meal, getting dressed, doing one or two chores. My family made arrangements now for somebody to clean and take care of the house. I could do a load or two of laundry, maybe walk a little bit. I mean, that was pretty much it for somebody who is pretty driven and has an entrepreneurial spirit and works hard and successful. And now I can even barely carry out the basics, barely. It was a February 7th, 2019. My spirits were low. My family was getting concerned, and I had gotten new earbuds for my son-in-law, hoping that would motivate me a little bit in walking. I decided to take him out, go for a walk. My plan was 2 miles. I had been doing a lot more prior to that, but I thought I'm going to push myself today. And I did it, and I felt pretty good. I lost one of my when I got back, I realized I had lost one of the earbuds. So I turned around and went back, and of course, it was at the 1 mile mark. So now I've walked 4 miles, and I was feeling, pretty good. Had something and put something in the oven, sat on a bench to enjoy. It was actually a warm February, and I had a stroke.
Oh,
It was a medium-sized stroke,
yeah.
and got TPA, which is a drug to stop any further clots. Was in the stroke center within 15 minutes. And I was lucky because I was alone in the park. There happened just to be two runners that I was able to call out that helped and called 911. And I came through the stroke pretty good. Unfortunately, the IV was infected with MRSA, which is a methyl resilient Staph aureus bacteria. And that wasn't treated with it properly, and that spread through my spine, through my blood, I was becoming septic, and it now is seated in my spine, in my spinal canal. And I'm having, emergency surgery in the middle of the night with a slim chance of surviving.
Oh,
And when I got out, I was given a slim chance of living less than 50%, which is, I think, pretty slim. If they're giving you that, it's lower.
yeah.
Because it comes back. It was allowed to seat too long. I had too many antibiotic fails at this time, and it encapsulates like cancer. And it was in my spinal canal, ready to burst. And it had destroyed some of my spine, my lower. And so I was, it's basically you need to just enjoy what you can with life. I'm now on 13 plus meds,
Oof.
walking around with a bag of antibiotics, barely could walk. I'm using a cane, I'm using a walker. I was in the hospital for over 2 months, rehab for 3 weeks. And you're 64. I guess I was 64, 65 at the time. This is just what happens to you. Be grateful you lived and move on,
Yeah. 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 Wow.
which is pretty doom and gloom.
Yeah. 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 What's great is it upturns, which we're getting to here, because this is just tremendous. All of these um adversities that kind of just come on one after another, and it's a common thread is all these medications that you were taking. It didn't really seem like they were helping, were they?
No, they helped me just to get by, if you want to call it that. At this point, so for Parkinson's, carbidopa levodopa is the main drug.
Yeah.
It's a gold standard. It's been that way forever. It does not fix anything. It doesn't turn anything around. It doesn't slow the disease. All it does is hide, mask your symptoms. And most people will take it when they're up in the morning. They'll take their highest doses when they need to be on work, a meeting, some sort of event. And then they taper off at night when it doesn't matter as much. For somebody who's 4 or 5 years with Parkinson's, well, at this point now, it was 3 years. Maybe you're on 100 milligrams a day, not very much. I was on 1,200 a day, popping pills every 3.5 hours.
Wow.
I had a lot of off symptoms.
Yeah.
The medication you take, it takes about 45 minutes to work. Then you get your peak at about an hour and a half or so, whatever your peak time is. And then you start coming down. Before you're all the way down off the medication, you take your next dose as you ride back up. I'm having trouble and having an enormous amount of off symptoms. And I did a clinical style for a new medication, which didn't work very well. And it's pretty hard to function that way. The medicine causes a lot of nausea for some people. I was one.
Yeah.
So I'm now on a diet of graham crackers, saltines, ginger ale, because I couldn't keep anything down. So you can imagine, on top of everything else, now I'm becoming more malnourished.
Yeah.
I would have a little bit of protein at night. You're discouraged from taking protein. It competes with a medication.
Yeah.
So when I come home, it didn't matter if I was, slow. It didn't matter if I had a slight tremor. It didn't matter any of the symptoms, dragging my leg, any of that came back because no one was there to witness it. So then I would have like a fistful of protein
Yeah. Yeah.
on
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's amazing that standard of care, because of the way the medication works, that you have to limit your protein, which isn't so great. But then what leads you to changing your diet?
Well, I had about a year and a half of therapy. I wasn't getting any better, and honestly, I had probably one of the biggest, if not the aha moment of my life. I could barely walk. I tried, sometimes I get to a quarter mile and it would set me back. I was in a lot of pain from the infection. Um, I'm an athlete, and now I can't even empty the bottom of the dishwasher, and I have to sit to shower or wash my hair. Standing was not an option. I had to sit to cook. I mean, I was really, really immobile. I didn't go anywhere without a cane. I didn't get up out of my chair without a cane. And I lost heart. It was too much. I'm on too many medications. I have too many illnesses. I just was beaten down. Having the RA and the Parkinson's seemed bad enough, and then a stroke, and now this deadly infection, which was most likely the thing that was going to kill me. I just got discouraged. But I had an aha moment at the mailbox. I turned around in absolute defeat. I'm just going to let everything just take a hold of me, and I'm not gonna fight it. I'm not gonna try to get any better. It's just my time. That's all there is to it. I'm just gonna let it run its course and give up. And as I did, I had a spiritual moment where I heard, well, how many steps can you take? You can't do what you want. How many steps do you have? And I stopped and scanned my body and said 10 steps. Almost flippant, my response was like, I mean, what is 10 steps going to do? And I turned, and then I heard, well, go turn around and take your 10 steps. And I did that. And I went home without much thought. And I kept every day that new marker, take 10 more steps. And there's something about it that changed me. And, you don't get far with 10 steps. 10 steps isn't even across the room. I mean, you could take 20 steps to get across a room. But it really did have a huge impact. And about 2 months in, so I've now put on weight. I've always been slender, but now, I've realized, well, I've got some weight on, which is hurting my back. I need to lose it. And I picked up the phone and made an appointment with somebody across the street, honestly thinking I was just going to get a pill. I mean, at this point, what's another pill? I need to get the weight off. And he proceeded to convince me to go low carb and eventually on a keto diet. And he sent me home. He talked with me for an hour and a half, and he sent me, and I brought my bag of pills, told him everything that was wrong. And he said, I want you to eat 50% fat. And I said to him, are you nuts? My medicine's not going to work. And he said, well, you're sick and you're getting worse. Are you willing to trust me? And I said, okay. And I thought he was nuts. I really did. I didn't want to do it. But at this point, I had no choice. I knew if I have a team of 10 doctors now. I'm seeing a specialist almost every week just for maintenance. And, I knew that if one other thing went wrong, I was going to get another pill, and it was just going to be one more nail in the coffin. Yeah. So I proceeded to eat fat. I started to log my macros. When you go from 0 fat to 50%, it's like a huge eye opener. And then I started adding MCT oil and coconut oil, which we can talk about more. I learned that from Dr. Mary Newport, whose husband had Alzheimer's. Yeah. And she found it was not only helpful for that, it was helpful for Parkinson's. So I started to add that to meet my fat. I started to eat beef with burgers and steak. I'm not cutting off the fat. I'm not draining the fat from the pan of the burgers. I'm not getting, 93% lean. I'm getting, the 80-20. And all I can say is, 2 months, and I met this man every week. The other 25% was protein and 25 carbs and clean carbs. That's like no junk. And I was a good eater. So that this wasn't hard for me to make the switch other than the 50% fat. And 2 months' time, I noticed I wasn't feeling worse. And it continued that way for 6 months. Somebody the other day asked me, well, how long did you feel, better? I've been doing this for 3-4 weeks. And I said, it was 6 months. And my only improvement was I wasn't worse. And thank goodness I had the foresight or the insight to continue and not quit. Because a marker of not feeling worse doesn't seem like a huge thing, but when you were as sick as I was, it was, because you deteriorate. Once you start deteriorating, it keeps escalating. One more system in your body goes. And then around, so I'm eating this way, tracking my macros, and around pretty close to the 9 months mark now, I'm into this. And So I'm feeling confident, not looking at my app at much. Then I start tracking and I'm like, I'm at 70, 80% fat. And it was at that point that I noticed my Parkinson's symptoms are going away.
Mm.
Oh, and just to back up, so not only that, I was tested. I didn't have true, um, um, oh, what's the word? I wasn't diagnosed as cognitive deficient, but I was clearly showing signs of cognitive issues.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm pretty sharp and I'm pretty quick. And, simple things I'm really having trouble process. And again, executive function is what we do day in and day out.
Yeah.
It's a skill that we all learn, has nothing to do with being an executive. It's just how we function. And that part had failed pretty bad. But I'm regaining it. Things are sharper, they're clearer, and I'm able to read a couple sentences and process it. I'm able to, maybe put together a simple meal without having to backtrack 10 times. Just subtle changes, but changes is like something's going on. And that's when the light bulb went off, like where it really went off. And I was like, oh my, everything I have to eat has all to do with what my body needs in healing.
Yeah.
It's where I really grasped, where I really understood the impact that what I ate, and mind you, I was a good eater. I wasn't a bad eater. I didn't eat junk. That nourishing myself with protein and fat, that I was improving and my symptoms were going away and things were reversing.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, the fat is so important. And it's funny you say we went to 50% fat and started feeling better, at least not getting worse. And then you get up to 70, 80% fat and you start seeing more progress a little bit faster. And I mean, how can we create hormones, neurotransmitters, even dopamine, which is so important to the whole Parkinson's context without cholesterol, without that fat foundation. Um, it's it's a really remarkable story, and you go from ketogenic, and then you level up to something else. So, can you share with us what you then
Sure.
shift ketogenic to?
So I did this for about a year and a half, and at the year and a half mark, I'm now off of all my RA medication. I'm not using my asthma medication as much. I no longer have heartburn. I'm getting rid of that. Um, the nerve pain is going away. And it took a year and a half of faithful. And when I say faithful, I didn't, um, I didn't, not at one point did I stop doing what was getting me well. So there wasn't one cheat, and I hate that word. I wish I could think of another one. There are no cheats, there are no deviations. Because now I've got a little bit of hope. I'm seeing something, the light bulb's going off. And I didn't have a great hope that I would be restored, but that maybe things wouldn't be so bad. So I was faithful. And it was at that point, the year and a half, where I started to play with my Parkinson medication and slowly, and I say this with caution, I didn't have the medical support to get off my medications. I chose to do it regardless of that support. And for Parkinson's, we do have leeway in playing around with our dosage and our time. So I think that gave me a little bit of freedom, feeling like, okay, I can do this. But I, cut my dose like, 25, milligrams, which is nothing in the scheme of 1200, every few days, slowly watching my symptoms. It took to a year and a half before I even ventured that far. My body needed a lot of healing, and a lot of consistency before. Meanwhile, I'm doing my 10 steps. And I stayed that way for a year and a half to 2 years. I'm going to be 3 years carnivore in January. So what a lot of people in my messages in my box that they don't get is Um, yes, the beef is fat, is protein, and protein's important. I need that nourishment. I'm increasing my training, so now I'm increasing my protein. But it was the fat that was key.
Yeah.
And you can eat lean cuts of beef and not get your fat, and you're defeating the purpose of it all.
Yeah.
It's the fat that's the most important. I still stay in ketosis. I still, as a carnivore, eat fatty beef. I still am at that 65 to 70% of my intake is fat. You can easily be carnivore and eat lean cuts and be at 50%.
Yeah.
But if you have any neurological illnesses, most of us have to stay at that 65 to 75% level. And I think and I still do the MCT oil and the coconut. And I think a lot of people who deal with dementia any kind of Parkinson's, any kind of epilepsy, any kind of, mood disorder, they're all going to tell you, we stay in ketosis.
Yes. Yes.
And that really is the most important thing. And I don't necessarily believe a carnivore works for me. I don't believe you have to be carnivore to heal. I think a real clean, streamlined, small list of foods and ones that aren't causing you inflammation on a keto diet are fine, because I got off of all my medication on a keto diet before carnivore. The reason I went carnivore is I was having the MRSA was coming back. I was got pneumonia, had a couple bronchitis episodes, and I knew I needed to take something to a different level, and that was cut out everything and just do beef to try to let that part of me heal. Because ultimately that was the part that was going to kill me over everything else. If I hadn't had the MRSA, I may and I may at some point switch. Though carnivore just works for me. If I hadn't had that, I may have stayed a really limited keto diet, high fat.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I was that sick. I have bacteria hiding in my body. It kept coming back.
Mm-hmm.
I had to do something even stronger elimination diet, because basically, not only are these nourishing, but they also eliminate other foods.
Yes.
Nightshades, lectins, sugar, alcohol, which I haven't had anything to drink for 39 years. Oxalate, low oxalates, all of those seem to aggravate. So those I did cut out in the keto diet.
Yep.
But I still, to this day, I'm completely healed. I'm off of all medications for over 2 years now, including my asthma medication, which I was on asthma medication for 68 years of my life. Every day I am off. I still maintain pretty much all the time in ketosis and that high fat diet.
Wow.
So I think that's really important for people to hear.
Yes.
Because so many go to the lean protein, and you're still depriving your body of the fat.
Yeah. Really great point. Really great point. Yeah. And we'll talk a little bit more about exercise and the role in your journey. But if everybody checks out Mimi's socials, you'll see how much she's training, and it's pretty remarkable. I think the training, it's creating more demand for a little bit more protein alongside that fat for you. But you're right. We've seen this in case studies, and Dr. Matthew Phillips has a great study on Parkinson's, and Dr. Dale Bredesen and his studies on Alzheimer's. The high fat ketosis combination, being able to it's a little bit of a fasting mimicking sort of situation, because you're giving your body less to have to sort through. But then you're also feeding your body, your nervous system, your neurons with a fuel source that burns cleaner. So you talked about MCT and coconut oil. Let's go back there. So what are your experiences with MCT and coconut oil, and how did they help you?
They helped me one to reach my levels because getting up to that 70, 80, which I needed to do for a while, even right on that 80%, is a lot. And I miss the mark sometimes. And, I think Dr. Mary Newport, she's got a number of books, they're $12, $15. It's worth it to get. She had her own experience with her husband. She speaks all over the world.
Yeah.
Um, and she'll tell you, well, which one's the best. She's not really sure, and she's going to take them both, and that's the way I am. So I'll alternate. It does, the MCT definitely helps you get into ketosis a little quicker, helps you to stay there. All of that just to me was supportive. I mean, the nutrition was the first part and the most important. I mean, you can't do exercise, which is required for Parkinson's, particularly. You can't do all of that if you aren't nourished and you aren't strong. If you're weak, all the exercise is going to work against you. So
Yeah.
you need to feed yourself first. And I really took this whole process of healing. I'm going on so I just turned 71. And so I didn't start I've been weight training for 3.5 years. I walked some before that. So we're talking, close to 5 years, my healing part of the journey, and I'm still seeing more healing. I think people have to understand that, and it's going to differ for everybody, but when you get closer to my age, if you have these many things hitting you, or if you neglected yourself prior, it's not going to turn around right away. This is something you have to do for the rest of your life. You have to measure progress in small steps. Again, I did not feel worse for 6 months.
Yeah.
How many people find that and want to quit?
Yeah.
But you have to look at these things as a win. So, I think it helps. And I still take the MCT and the coconut oil every day. I will say that I've recommended to a few people who don't have any neurological illnesses. They're older. My trainer is one, and she's 77, by the way.
Yeah.
I've got her taking it, and she notices there's a sharpness that she has from it.
Yeah.
And I've heard that from other people.
Yeah.
And you can read up with it with Dr. Mary Newport, but it is important, and it's enough so that even after all these years, I'm not stopping it. You have to take it slow. It can cause digestive issues. We're in this for the long haul. You don't need a rush. So I think it's, a tablespoon of each, maybe sometimes more I take. If I feel like I'm a little sluggish or I'm not getting my fat in, say the meat wasn't fatty, I might take a swig of the MCT. Start a half a teaspoon and start slow.
Yeah. 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 That's excellent. That's excellent.
And give it time. Just have to give things time.
Yeah.
You didn't get sick. You didn't get sick overnight. And you're lying to yourself if you did,
Yeah.
This is something that was brewing. And even for Parkinson's, they say it's probably been brewing 20, 30 years prior.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is important. So if you don't have it, I would recommend you start to make sure that you don't get it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because they say if you live long enough, everybody will have some form of Parkinson's.
Yeah.
Parkinson, yeah.
Yeah, that's what they say. Yeah. Yeah, it's Dr. Mary Newport, amazing. We've had her on, and she was a big
Oh, you
early.
have? I have to go look for that. I
Yeah.
have to go look for that. I really, I love listening to her. I listen to him over and over again. And, I was grateful that I found a little bit of hope. I'm doing this before I was on social media, before
Yeah.
I had no help,
Yeah.
other than her book and this man across the street who I'm just trusting with my life at this point.
Yeah.
And what I was doing wasn't working.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing. So many people will find themselves. I was the same way. I think Dr. Mary Newport was the earliest source of inspiration for so many different people who were looking for answers to try to figure out how to help themselves in some sort of neurological issue. And She was one of the early people I reached out to help with my dad, and she's just an amazing person, and what she's been able to achieve and all the information she's been able to share. So that's great. So your exercise has evolved. It started 10 steps, and then you were adding 10 more steps. So take us through that arc a little bit and what you're doing now.
So I did those 10 steps every day, 10 steps from the new place. And I would stop at that new 10-step mark and say, can I do 10 more? And I push myself. So my natural inclination is let's go for the mile, because anything less than that's not good enough. 10 steps was really humbling, and I needed to be humbled. But I learned to be grateful for those 10 steps. They were very small, but in truth, my body had nothing else to give. So for me, for somebody else who isn't, somebody else who takes the easy way out, maybe you need to push yourself a little bit, and maybe your 10 steps is 20 steps. For somebody like me who doesn't know when to stop, I had to be grateful and accept the fact that that was all I had. And that, of course, that gratitude shifts you. And there's something that happens when you do something consistently. If you do it with a gratitude, because when I stopped, and these all seem like minor points, but they really were key to my healing, was as I stopped and said, can I do 10 more today? I was learning to listen intuitively my body, because most of my healing and eating has been intuitive. I've gotten no help from the medical community. Now there's certainly plenty of resources, but the first few years, I did this without social media, without, a lot of the great support. So I learned to listen to myself. And I kept taking those 10 steps. And I found, within a year, I've walked a mile, which was pretty good. There was a time where that was not possible for me to do that, or was there ever a future where I would be walking that again? I'm still using a cane for aid. I'm still a little bit labored, but I did it. One thing you will hear in the Parkinson's community, and anybody who's diagnosed, I will tell you 30% of the people who are diagnosed lose that diagnosis within 5 to 10 years. So it is not set in stone at all. And there are many illnesses that mimic. Many people have Parkinsonism. And then sometimes it branches out, or it just doesn't progress. This is where I think like food and all these things can help. But if you go to any of the top Parkinson's centers, and I would go to one, I would not go to a neurologist. You can go to a neurologist first, but it's worth it to travel. They have state-of-the-art equipment. They have a whole team for physical therapy. I did speech therapy. My movements were getting small. I did big therapy. I had a tremor in my throat from my speaking. I had typical Parkinson's voice. People couldn't hear me anymore. I did intensive every single day, 6-week therapy for that. That was crucial. And they will all tell you, when they give you the prescription for medication, it's probably the only medical specialty that does this. Here's your medication for you. It's going to mask your symptoms, but the most important medication is exercise, exercise, exercise.
Yeah.
All 3 places I went to told me that. And they all said, we can't tell you enough how important it is. And just real briefly, there's a story. I've read the book. I forget the gentleman's name.
Yeah.
But he, and if I'm either he or his wife, one of them, I don't remember all of it. They were out in Iowa. There's a big bike trip. Have you heard the story?
It sounds familiar.
I'll look for the book for you. So it's fascinating.
Yeah.
So they're on this, biking 50, or they were bikers. One of them had Parkinson's.
Okay.
Let's just say it was her. I think it was her. And so she and her husband are biking. Her Parkinson's getting worse. And somewhere like in day 2 of the trip, they got in a big husband and wife fight. And now they're not talking. And one of their friends said, "Why don't you ride with me and let your husband go ride with somebody else?" Wise man, right? So she rode with him. Well, he was an experienced biker and he set the pace. And she struggled to keep up with him, but she did. And when they finished at the day's end, and she's getting off her bike to do something, her symptoms have almost all gone away. And he happened to be a neurological researcher.
Yeah.
And he noticed this after a couple of days with her. He noticed it when they stopped for a lunch break, when they
Wow.
stopped at the end of the day, how she improved. And he's the one that did the studies showing how high intensity exercise puts Parkinson's symptoms at rest. And I'll look for the book for you. It is absolutely fascinating.
Yes.
So I would encourage people to do the big therapy if your movements are small. Insurance usually covers it. It teaches you to take really big steps. It feels stupid, but in actuality, you aren't taking big steps. Your brain is telling you it is, because movement gets smaller with Parkinson's.
Right.
I did rock steady boxing, which is for Parkinson's, was very helpful. I couldn't go back to it once I had the back infection. They said, no, I could never do anything like that again, unfortunately. And I mean, there are people that come in a wheelchair and do it.
Yep.
There are people who are in their early stages. It's really important. I'm a big knitter. I lost the ability to knit. As I'm healing with food, I'm picking it back up because I want to get my fine motor skills. But you got to get those fast, twitch muscles going. So whether it's with a physical therapist for safety, find what you like, pickleball, tennis, whatever. Walking, you can do interval walkings, listen to the music, and I think it's called Tabata. I do that to pick up speed. You go, 30-minute rest or slow walk and then a fast walk. I can't enforce that enough.
Yeah.
How absolutely important it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
And a big piece of it, because you can change your diet, and then if you're not adding exercise, you're not. It's a multi-pronged approach. So it not only took me changing my diet, it took me having gratitude and some
Yes.
faith.
Yes.
My faith is very important.
Can we actually just, I wanted to ask
Yeah.
about that, because you have a remarkable story, but just hearing you also have a remarkable mindset and value system. Could you talk about faith and what role faith has played for you in all of this?
Well, I almost lost it. And, my family would say to me, they don't understand me. I was a woman of faith and they couldn't see it. And I did lose it until God whispered in my ear to take those 10 steps. And that renewed my faith. And it's even deeper now. It's important to me. Frankly, I don't understand how anybody can get through life without it. It's pretty lonely and empty. For me, believing in something greater than myself is important. I still, when I have trouble, I do distance walking. I'm training to walk 500 miles across Spain. That's 20 to 30 kilometers or miles a day. Still, when I train for that, I'm still saying just 10 more steps, God, just give me 10 more. I still use that all the time. But my faith is very important to me. And I have a immense heart of gratitude. I'm thankful every day. And that's really important. And we have to be thankful for the small things, all of that. I started going to the beach a couple years ago. It's not far from me to watch the sunrise and to be grateful for that. I'm grateful for when the sun sets. And not only that, it helps with your circadian rhythm. I had sleep disorders. I had 3 serious sleep disorders. Sometimes I'd go days without sleeping. It was part of my symptoms with Parkinson's. Your people that have it will be familiar with it. I had, night terrors, a severe restless leg, and severe insomnia. I sleep 8 to 10 hours a day. I wear blue light blockers at night and in the morning, and unplug hours before. I still do today. All the things that got me well, I continue to do to stay well. This isn't do them to get well and then stop. This is a lifelong now for me, because I have no doubt that I would reverse course if I didn't. But I do. I get morning sun, evening sun, block out the harmful lights, try to have time unplugged, my faith, food, and exercise. I mean, it's pretty basic and none of it costs too much. My groceries are less than they were before, and I have no waste.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
It's amazing. A common pattern in this, and I think a lot of people, whether they be diagnosed with Parkinson's or some other neurological diagnosis, Alzheimer's definitely. Yet it really seems like throughout this journey with your health failing, your world was getting smaller. And what's amazing about what I'm hearing is that you, even though it was challenging and painful, you had made these systematic choices to wherever you were, whatever you could control and influence, that you'd be grateful for that and maximize that. And little by little, things started expanding again. And it's just amazing because it's only been several years. It's actually a very short period of time. Like when you say a lot of chronic disease, whatever diagnosis it is decades in the making. So I just an amazing story, and you're an amazing role model. Um, as we're kind of wrapping up here, what would you say to someone who's just been diagnosed with Parkinson's and doesn't quite know what to do next? They're looking for answers. They don't know what direction they want to take this Parkinson's diagnosis in, but they want better quality of life. They want to get better. They want better. What would you say to them?
Um, let's see. So while I think about that, I want to add one other thing, weight training. I weight train 4 times a week with a trainer. I don't want to, and I usually talk about that. So I do walk, but that's really key
Okay.
because we need to strengthen our muscles and bones. So that's an important part of the picture and healing.
Yeah.
First, I wouldn't lose hope.
Yeah.
The body is absolutely miraculous. And I'm sure you've seen the picture of me, how I looked at 61. I mean, I looked 80.
Yeah.
My eyes were blank. Nobody was home. I was gone. You could see I'm deteriorating. And for me to turn around to this 10 years later. So we're never too old. It's never too late. Don't lose hope. So that's the most important thing. Try to find a doctor who will work with you. Try to hold off on getting medication and look at some of the things that people like me are doing. Other people, do your research. If what you're doing isn't working, then what do you have to lose to try a high fat diet? I mean, seriously, what do you have to lose? Give it a few months and see how you feel. I guarantee you're going to feel better. But if you don't, then you can try something else. But we often get stuck thinking, I've got to stay with what I'm doing. I would exercise like crazy. And you have to decide, I actually did this post the other day, they say the number one skill for doing well in life is be unstoppable. And I'm unstoppable. I almost was crushed, but my true spirit is I'm unstoppable. Yeah. And I'm just not quitting I'm just not. I'm going to go out my last breath, giving it my all.
Yeah.
Life is precious. God's given us an amazing body to heal. We can make smart choices. My definition of food is completely different. Nothing in the grocery store in a box or package to me is food.
Yeah.
They sold us a bill of lies. So, I think you have to be willing to make some changes. Yes, they're hard, but they're a lot easier than living with the sickness and illness I ever did.
Yeah.
And I have a spirit about me. When I say I slowed down, I couldn't get away faster from my illness than I could, to the point where like I'm just pushing myself way too much.
Yeah.
So I give myself some rest days and whatever, but I just don't ever want to go back there. And all of it in retrospect, all the changes I had to make was so easy compared to the pain and the suffering and watching my life deteriorate.
Yeah.
And it will get worse if you don't make changes. And there is, medication has saved my life. Antibiotics has saved my life. None of it has ever healed me.
Yeah. Powerful. Powerful. One last thing, actually, I should have asked you earlier, because people, you and I were well versed with ketosis, the ketogenic diet, but sometimes people will hear high fat, but isn't fat bad? We got a clear distinction here of what kinds of fats, right? So we talk about MCT and coconut oil. Can you actually just share really quickly, our audience, what are some of the most healing foods, healing fats that you've been using to help in your healing journey?
So I stay away from seed oils, and that's, some people are not that afraid of them, but I don't need anything that's processed in a factory. So for me, the natural fat that comes from beef, I do buy my beef from a regenerative farm. I don't think you have to, but I made that decision that you would go without the Starbucks coffee or this or that, for getting good beef, that's raised on a farm and humanely. That was important to me. So I eat the fat on the beef. I don't cut it off. So for me, that is the most nutrient dense, the best food out there. I limit eggs, but eggs, was perfect nutrition if you can do well with them. And I'm Catholic. I just converted this year. So I eat fish on Friday if I don't fast. I do intermittent fasting. So, there's so much to talk about this. That did help me in my healing.
Yeah.
I don't eat my first meal until 11 o'clock.
Yeah.
That was, and I didn't start that for the first 6 or 9, probably 9 months that I add intermittent fasting, but it was good for me.
Yeah.
And then my last meal is by 5.
Yes.
And so that also too, I know absolutely benefited me. Yeah. But that's good. The MCT oil and the coconut oil and butter. Yeah. Tallow is another one. So, I make my own bone broth every week. And when I chill it, I get a layer of tallow and I take that out and put that in a dish and I cook with that. My cholesterol is on the high side. Interesting little experiment. There's so many lies, and you can look into it. Your viewers can look into it for cholesterol. My triglycerides are 57. My ratio is 56. Those are absolute stellar numbers. Anything under 2 for triglycerides is fine. Anything under 1 is great. I'm 57. My cholesterol is higher. So there's an experiment Nick Norowitz did with Oreos. You've heard that?
Yeah.
Well, I'm not going to eat an Oreo because Oreo is garbage.
Yeah.
But I just had my test, and my numbers were like 300 and some before. I'm in the 200s now. Yeah. I decided I went to a local farm, and I bought a watermelon, and I had watermelon the night before my test, and of course my numbers dropped to 200.
Sure.
And that really kind of tells you, so really how accurate is this test? Right. Plus the fact there's plenty of studies that, especially for, adult seniors, that those without dementia have higher cholesterol.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
The mother's milk when a baby is born and is nursing, it's all cholesterol.
That's right. It's all CTs in there. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, I'm convinced, I was slipping cognitively very fast, so
Yeah.
much that I had to quit a job that I did for 11 years,
Yeah.
exceptionally. I couldn't even do it and I couldn't even do it marginally good. Um, that it was the fat, because that's what I changed in my diet.
Yeah.
That was the change for me. So I know that that's what made the difference.
Yeah.
And I'm not afraid of cholesterol. And
Great.
they want to put me on medication. I don't even want to hear
Yeah. Yeah. Quick to bring cholesterol. Cholesterol's been the boogeyman for some decades now. And unfortunately, it's a story that's stuck for a while. But I think hearing stories like yours, this is a lived experience. You're not a PhD, you're
it.
not a
No.
doctor, you're not a researcher. You're just a person who encountered some health adversities and tried to get better, and you just stuck with what worked. And I think you're a living testament, like many others out there who have kind of seemed to just return to what our ancestors ate before we had all this processed stuff in the aisles in boxes that
Right.
are food-like substances. So, yeah, it's amazing. Fasting, that's super important for our viewers, as you've reinforced here. Also helps us get into ketosis. So this is tremendous. Mimi, where can people find you and your resources?
So you can find me on X, or formerly known as Twitter. I'm there all the time. Mimi K, initial K, Mimi K Morgan. And then on Instagram, I'm not there hardly ever, but I'm going to work on that. And that is Mimi Morgan K. In about a month from now. So I will have, you could find me at just10moresteps.com.
Yep.
I am finishing up my certified personal trainer certification and then going for metabolic therapy certification so I can help people with what to eat and to um, start training. And particularly my niche will be people who were not unlike me, didn't know where to go and their health failed and they're at a loss, because I've traveled that journey of just, 10 more steps
Yep.
and it led me out. So give it about a month or so on that. You can find me on the website, but definitely on X at Mimi K. Morgan.
Great, great. Yeah, we'll link all of that in the description box below. Point everybody there. I really encourage everybody to take a look at maybe socials and also this website. Just an incredible role model, an amazing story, very inspirational, and yeah, I really appreciate you coming on for us and sharing this. It's going to help a lot of people. So,
Well,
uh,
thank you for asking me. I appreciate it. And just one other thing, real quick.
yeah.
I, the other important part of the story is I'm not 40 or 50. I'm 71 and turned my life around.
Hey, I
And
didn't want to
we're
ask you.
taught
I
and
didn't want to ask.
we're taught in society that over 60 to accept illness and failure and frailty. And I'm here to say, don't believe them.
Yeah.
Don't believe them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
first thing you'll see on her X account, on Twitter account, will be that side by side picture, and it's almost unreal at the beginning there. But to keep up with you, yeah, you don't look 71, and you don't move 71.
No, I don't. I definitely don't go
You
71.
don't you don't sound 71. But isn't it kind of sad that that's what we are benchmarking 71 as? I think probably a few generations ago, 71 was this, right? So I think we all got to start getting used to um, the reality that there are some limiting beliefs that we have conditioned around advancing in age, and I think we can remain functional, strong, sharp, healthy. But what we eat, how we move our bodies, how we manage stress, how we sleep, our faith, our value system, our mindset is so important. So, and you're a living testament to that. So great. Well, Mimi, thanks again, and looking forward to
Thank
connecting
you.
with you down the road.